in what world would women not be the one to save it? Women are always getting shit done. His mother is literally the most Karen of all Karens. Like, she's the Karen that you would fight at the end of the video game, like the boss Karen, that if you beat her, you beat the entire game.
Let that wave crash over my head and pull me deeper. Let the water fill my lungs, make me stay forever young.
Alright, hey guys, it's Jocelyn. Welcome back to my channel, Jocelyn Reads. And today I am going to be doing a wrap up. So you might have noticed that I didn't have a June wrap up on my channel last month. I guess that would be 2 months ago now. So yeah, I was in a bit of a filming slump slash, I don't know, kind of a life slump at the end of June. So I didn't end up filming a wrap up. But I am here to wrap up all the books I read in June and all the books I read in July. And I think in total I read 16 books with a total of around like 7.8k pages if I calculated that right. But this is my second time filming this video, so it's gonna be a little bit different than my normal wrap-ups. But because I already filmed this all the way through and literally edited it all the way through, and something happened with my computer to where I would have to re-edit the whole video, so I decided I'm just going to refilm it in a way that makes it a bit easier for me. So instead I'm just going to talk about all the books that I really have something to talk about, and then at the end show you the other books that maybe I didn't discuss and tell you the star ratings that I gave them. So I'm first going to talk about all my physical books before I go to my ebooks, so I can just put them all together. So the first book that I have to talk about is Take a Hint, Danny Brown by Talia Hibbert, and this book was gifted to me by Ariana at Ariana Reads. I'll put her name across the screen as well as down below. This is her Twitter. I was really thankful that she gifted this to me because I really did enjoy Chloe Brown, so I wanted to see what Danny Brown had going on. And yeah, so this one is about Danny Brown, and she's a PhD student, and she also teaches a few classes. And at one of the buildings of the classes that she teaches, there's this security guard named Zafir, and they're really good friends. And every time she comes to the building, she like brings him like coffee, and they chit chat a little bit, but there's nothing more than that. And one day there's this safety drill, and Danny gets stuck in the elevator, and Zafir basically has to rescue her. And so he comes out the building holding her in his arms, all heroic, like he's like this big muscly guy I love, and he carries her out of the building like my dream. And one of her students records it, and it goes viral, and they just become this little viral couple like you would see on like Twitter. And so after that, Zafir has this charity project that he's working on, and that kind of gets a lot of attention because he went viral. And so they decide to fake date so he can keep getting that attention. I love that we started this book with these two already having a close relationship as friends, because we got to go right into the relationship development. Because though I do like angst, there's a specific type of angst that I do like, and it's the type of angst where two characters who don't have a relationship at all have to spend a lot of time getting to know each other. But with this book, they're already really close friends, and you can tell that through the banter that they have in the beginning of the book, and they already talk and things like that. So I was glad that I didn't have to wait for a really long time to have them go into their fake dating and then into their starting to like each other and things like that, because I am impatient, and sometimes I really do just want the author of romances to just get right into it, because then once they started that fake relationship, their feelings were already there, and so they just were kind of forced to deal with them, which I really enjoyed watching. And I also thought that Zafir and Danny were basically meant for each other. They were literally the yin to the other's yang, and it was the cutest thing, just because Danny, like I said, is very closed off, and she feels like she's pretty insecure about herself and insecure about herself as a partner in a relationship. And Zafir is the sweetest, most gentle man, and he gives her everything that she needs in order to feel secure in a relationship. And I just absolutely loved it. And there were so many scenes in here that I found really cute. Like, Zafir was always seeking Danny out, and so she had to do a lot of studying, and Zafir was always taking care of her in that sense. He would seek her out, get her some food and stuff like that. And I just love when a man stays in a man's place and takes care of a woman. So I mean, he was perfect to me.
She is very gorgeous to me.
Oh, by the way, I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. Next book that's on top is also a romance, and it's also one that I really liked, and this one is called You Deserve Each Other, and it's by Sarah Hogel or Hogel. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but this book was everything to me. I did a reading vlog reading it. I think it was a 24-hour readathon, and literally you can watch me go through a roller coaster of emotions. Well, this book is about a couple named Naomi and Nicholas, and they're engaged, and their relationship is on the, oh sorry, I was looking at the viewfinder that entire time. I'm gonna look at the camera now. Sorry, I got a new camera, and I like to look and make sure I'm in frame and stuff like that, because I'm used to having to do that with my phone. But I'm looking at the lens, I'm looking at you, we have something here. So yes, this book is about a couple named Naomi and Nicholas, and they're engaged, and their relationship is on the rocks. Like, they feel like they don't love each other anymore, they don't even like each other anymore, but they can't break it off because there's a lot of money already put into their wedding, and so if they break it off, they'll be losing a lot of money. And they come to this agreement, and when I say they, I mostly mean Naomi, because we're in Naomi's head, and she comes to this realization that they are now basically in a battle of wills, and whoever can irritate the other one the most basically wins, because the other one will get so irritated that they break off the engagement. And so we just followed this kind of tit for tat thing between them, and this book is really cool for romance because I feel like it has an unreliable narrator, because we don't get Nicholas's point of view, we only get Naomi's, and Naomi has this jaded view of Nicholas that stems from her relationship with his mother. His mother is literally the most Karen of all Karens. Like, she's the Karen that you would fight at the end of the video game, like the boss Karen, that if you beat her, you beat the entire game. That's Nicholas's mom. She's always in Naomi's business, she's always saying rude comments, she has Nicholas as her little mama's boy, and she literally will not let him think for herself, and she's just always in places that she doesn't need to be, honestly. And if she was my mother-in-law, I would want to break off the engagement too. So because of her relationship with Nicholas's mom, she starts to put his mom's intentions on him and starts to view him as more like his mom, and it really puts a divide between them because she doesn't really see him for who he is anymore. And so we definitely have an unreliable narrator, because when we start off the book, we also start to feel that way about Nicholas. But the cool thing about the book is, as they reacquaint themselves with each other, we get to see who Nicholas really is, and all of those like bad feelings and negative feelings that we had about him in the beginning of the book kind of fade, and we realize, oh, this is not even who he is. So it's literally like we are Naomi as we're reading this book, and we're literally falling in love with the love interest again. And I feel like I really did fall in love with Nicholas. Like, I want my own Nicholas. He's the cutest thing. There's this one particular scene, if you know, you know, when Naomi had that car and Nicholas had to come get her. He was the sweetest thing when he came to get her. And that one scene where he's tickling her on the ground, steamy, the sexual tension, all of that is there. So I feel like you get the little bit of fluff, you get the banter, you get the tension between the characters, you get sexual tension between the characters. It's literally all that I could ask for in a romance. So the next book I have, I also liked because of the romance, but this one is an adult fantasy, and it is by N.K. Jemisin, and it's called The 100,000 Kingdoms. I'm so mad at myself that it took me this long to pick this book up. Also, this book was gifted to me by Simone at Chasing Pages, so thank you, Simone. I already thanked her in her DMs, but I wanted to say that on camera as well. And so yeah, this book follows a girl named Yenny, and it starts off with us finding out that her mother has died, and she now has to move to this kingdom in the sky that her grandfather rules. And when she gets to this kingdom, her grandfather tells her that she is in a battle to become his heiress against her two cousins, and she's just thrown into it. She knows nothing about the society that she has entered, but she just knows that she has to fight to become the heir or she's going to die. And it's so funny because that's the synopsis, but it actually captures so much more than that. Like, there's this aspect of gods that was pretty much my favorite part of the book, and there's also this relationship between her and one of the gods, which I know I just said the gods part was my favorite part of the book, but that relationship, when I tell you the sexual tension was on point, it was on point. One of my favorite romantic relationships that I've ever read. They're right up there with Nicholas and Naomi. They might be past them because there's this god aspect, so it's so much darker than a little contemporary new adult romance. So if you like dark romances with that tortured soul main character, that guy that's really a tortured soul and he's had so much trauma and he can't trust anyone and he's kind of bad to the bone, that's this character, and I freaking loved him. But what I also loved about this book was how the gods were portrayed and how they were written. So these gods were walking around with the humans, and they actually were pretty much enslaved, and so they couldn't reach their full potential of power because of them being enslaved. And so the gods really came off as humans, and they were written as humans. There's this one particular god named Sia, and he's in the body of a little boy, and he likes to spend time with Yenny and talk to her and kind of inform her about things. And it's so interesting because he's written as a little boy and he has these childlike mannerisms, but he'll do one little thing and you realize how old he is, and you realize how much of a powerful being he is. And it's weird because it kind of causes this cognitive dissonance in the sense that you're like, this is a kid, but he's not, he's literally grown. So it's just so interesting. It was my favorite thing about the book. Sia was one of my favorite characters, along with the love interest Naha, who was like this god of darkness. This is the kind of romance that I look for in fantasy. Like, I feel like we got the world building and we got the really deep history behind the world that Yenny goes to, but we also get a really well developed romance. I want to say that if I read adult fantasy and the romance feels like it's thrown in, I don't want it to be there, but who am I to read a book without romance? Like, I really do need that romance, even if it's a little bit subpar. I'm just going to have to take a star off, but I need something. But I feel like this is an adult fantasy where if you are a romance lover, but you also have a really strong love for fantasy, this is the perfect book for that. So the next book that I want to talk about is Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo. And I would say one of the first books to make me cry this year, but literally I've been crying all damn year at these books, and I don't know what is wrong with me. I don't know if it's the books or it's me, but we're not gonna figure it out, and we're not gonna discuss that there because we're not gonna go that deep. Anyway, this book is about two sisters, and they don't know that they're sisters, but they do find out at the beginning of the book because their dad dies as he's on a plane from New York, where one of them lives, to the Dominican Republic where the other lives. And because of his death, both of his families are informed, and the story just follows these sisters finding out that they're sisters, figuring out what it means to have this secret family member across the world, and trying to come to terms with the fact that they maybe didn't know their father as well as they thought they did. This also touches on a lot of colorism because one of the sisters is darker than the other, and also speaks on being a woman and being a growing woman in terms of sexual assault and potential sexual abuse, and just feeling like you don't have the autonomy that you deserve. So I feel like Elizabeth Acevedo was able to include a lot of powerful messages within this one book that's not even that long, but I don't know if you can see my tabs. Can you see? And almost all of the tabs are for really sad parts. They're literally all blue tabs because this book is sad, but it's really good. And I really like that it's written in verse because I feel like there's something about Elizabeth Acevedo's writing in verse that just makes her stories that much more impactful, which is a lot coming from me because I don't read poetry. I don't know how to read poetry, but listening to her audiobooks and listening to Elizabeth Acevedo speak her story into your ears is one of the best experiences that I've had as a reader. And also there's another narrator in this book for the other sister, and I thought that narrator did an amazing job as well. So I definitely would recommend the audiobook for this. So the next book that I have is called The Priory of the Orange Tree. It's the thickest boy on, I don't even know if it's the thickest one on my TBR anymore because I've gotten some big old books lately, but it's up there and it's so pretty. Like, anyway, let me tell you what this book is about. This book is really hard to explain because it is very complex in the sense that it is a very well-developed world and there's a lot of rich history behind the book, and I don't want to spoil all of that because you learn it as you go. Like with each chapter, pieces start connecting. It's literally like a puzzle throughout the entire thing. Little pieces start connecting. You start to learn more history, and it's just the best part about the experience for me personally. But this book follows a world that is divided with the East and the West. And the West, I'm pretty sure, are people who do not like dragons, and they have this religion called virtuedom where they basically worship this family that they believe to have descended from this very powerful being in their society. And the other side is the East, where they praise dragons, they love dragons, they are dragon riders. And these two sides of the world are divided because of how they feel about dragons. And in the West, we meet this girl named Iad, and she is an outsider in the kingdom that she is living in. She did not grow up there, but she works her way up the ranks until she becomes the lady in waiting for the current queen, who is named Sabran. And Sabran has her own things going on because she is the queen of this kingdom, and things are kind of going awry, and she's also kind of being pressured to have a child. And we learn throughout the book why that is and who Iad is, and it's very interesting. And we also follow this girl named Tane in the East, the place that loves dragons, and she is training to be a dragon rider. And the foundation of this story is the fact that the East and the West has this common enemy. It's an ancient enemy, very powerful, and it is said that this enemy is coming back. So now both the East and the West have to grapple with how to fight this enemy, and I feel like it's written so well. I loved how the dragons were portrayed. I love the fact that we're following all women, and all these women are in power, and the men in this book basically just have to sit back and look pretty as they should. And I find it amazing. I think that this book is very accurate to this world just because the women are doing all the work and the women are saving the world. And like, in what world would women not be the one to save it? Women are always getting shit done. So to have all these fantasy books with men being the ones to save the world, I just find it unrealistic. I mean, it's just me, but it's a bit unrealistic, sweetie. So I'm really glad that we get 3 powerful women figures. Not even 3, I feel like we get more as we go on, but there's like 3 main powerful figures in this book that are women, that are kick-ass women. They're saving the world, and we also get a female-female relationship. So like, what else can you ask for? You got powerful women, you got dragons, huge enemy that they have to defeat, and it's just amazing. If you're scared of this book because it's big, I honestly would tell you not to be, because the writing is very accessible. It's just like a long book. It's literally a series put into one, in my opinion. Like, I feel like it maybe could have been split in 2, but it's more effective as one book. And so there's nothing about the writing that's hard. There are a lot of characters introduced in the beginning, so that might be a little bit difficult to understand at first. So the next book that I want to talk about, these are all pretty good books. I think I had a really good reading month, so if you guys are like, she's read a lot of 4 and 5 stars, it's not usually like that for me. Usually I get a little 3, 2s in there, but I feel like these months I picked up books that I knew I would really like, or if I didn't know it, I picked it up and was pleasantly surprised by how much I liked them. So the next book I want to talk about is The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett, and this is a book that we read for the Hotties book club. If you didn't know, I'm in this book club called the Unfriendly Black Hotties book club, and also a friend group called the Unfriendly Black Hotties, and decided to make a book club that focuses on books by black authors, and we review them as black reviewers. Follow our Twitter, subscribe to our YouTube, and also follow our Instagram. All will be linked down below. But this book is basically about a set of twins. One is named Stella and the other is named Desiree, and they live in this town called Mallard. And Mallard is a weird town because it is a town that selectively breeds for lighter skinned people. Like, these are all black people living in this town, but they have been told to look like Greeks. That's how they're described in the beginning of the book. So their skin tone is that of a Greek, and there's black people there with blonde hair, black people there with red hair, like people who you would pass on the street and would think that they are a white person, but they are black. And so that's what's happening in this town, and the twins decide to leave the town at a pretty young age, and when they're gone, one of the twins decides to leave the other, and she decides to become a white woman, and the other twin stays in her blackness. And from there we just follow their stories and what it means to be white passing, and the effects of her deciding to be white passing, as well as the effects of the other twin being black. And she actually ends up returning to Mallard with a darker skinned daughter, and what that means for her and what that means for her daughter. And I feel like this touches on so many things, from racism to colorism to even sometimes like womanhood, and I felt that it was really well done. I specifically like the conversation centered around colorism and me following 2 people who were kind of could have been the same person, but were split by their decision to be white and their decision to be black, and where that led their lives. I really felt that these characters within themselves were a critique on colorism. And also my favorite character was Jude, who was Desiree's daughter, the twin that decided to be black, and she's very dark skinned, and she was dark skinned growing up in Mallard, a place where everyone looked white, and it was really a struggle for her to grow up there. And to watch her life progress to what it was really satisfying to watch, because I literally only wanted good things for her. And this book is super hard to talk about because it's kind of short, and I don't want to get into spoilers because everything kind of feels like a spoiler to me, so I'm gonna leave it off there. But I definitely did want to talk about it because it was one of my favorite books of the month, and this one was also a 4 out of 5 stars. The only reason that I gave it 4 and took off 1 star was the fact that this book goes through different people's narratives. So we go through Desiree's narrative, which is the twin who decided to stay black. We go through Jude's narrative, who is her daughter. We go through Stella's narrative, which is the other twin who decides to be white. And then we go through Kennedy's narrative, who is Stella's daughter. And all of these narratives, I feel like would have been better if they were interwoven throughout the book. Like, you get Desiree chunk, you get Jude chunk, you get Kennedy chunk, you get Stella chunk, like that. And they're different time periods, and they're not like happening at the exact same time. So we'll go through Desiree's life, go through Jude's life, go through Stella's life, and so forth. And I feel like that made the book a bit clunky, just because I felt like I was left wanting more after each point of view, because we didn't get them in the same timeline, if that makes sense. And then when they finally came together in a meaningful way at the end, I felt like it was a little bit too late, and I felt like the author needed a little bit more time to really cohesively weave all their stories for it to be impactful for me. But because I still found the story really interesting, and I really liked the topics on colorism, and I really did think that all of the characters' stories were engaging, and I felt like all the characters felt like real people to me, I still think that it was 4 out of 5 stars. There was just a bit of a pacing issue and a bit of a, I don't know if you say formatting, but just the way the story was told. Okay, so the last physical book that I want to talk about is The Kingdom of Copper by S.A. Chakraborty. And I can't say the synopsis of this book just because it is a second book in the series, so I'm going to tell you the synopsis of City of Brass. It's basically about this girl named Nari who grows up living in Cairo, Egypt, and she is a street rat who finesses people to make her living. And honestly, go for it, girl. I really support her finessing because she's literally like Robin Hood. She's stealing from the rich and giving to the poor, and the poor is herself. And I mean, so the beginning of the book starts with one of her schemes, and she is scheming to heal this girl, and she's basically doing an exorcism on this girl. Her family believes that there's an ifrit inside of her, and Nari doesn't believe in those types of things, but she's doing the exorcism to get money. But as she's speaking in this language, as she's very skilled in speaking a lot of languages, and so she's just speaking in this language that she doesn't really know what she's saying, and what she ends up doing is summoning this jinn. And the jinn ends up telling her that she's a part of this really famous ancestry in this place that he's from that is called Daevabad, and that she's the last living person of her ancestry. So he's telling her that she has to go back there and claim her rights because she is so powerful there and she is so well loved there, and he wants to take her back. But then we also follow points of view of people already in Daevabad, more specifically Ali, who is a prince there. His dad is the king of the entire Daevabad, and he is a pretty oppressive king, and he has this caste system in play where people who are Shafi, which is a half human half Deva, that is what Dara is, and that's what Ali is, and that's what Nari is thought to be. So people who are Shafi, who are half Deva, half human, have no rights there, and Ali doesn't think that that's right, and he wants to change it. I'm not a politics stan in books, but what I've come to realize is if I'm really connected to different characters of caste and different characters who actually care about politics, then I also care about politics because of what it means to the characters. And so I feel like if you like politics at all, or if you're a character driven person, then you'll really love this book because the characters are very three-dimensional. I think The Kingdom of Copper is a really good continuation to The City of Brass because of what happens directly at the end of City of Brass. Kingdom of Copper does a time jump, and I think that time jump is really effective because of what happened. I have to be very vague, but I think the time jump is really effective because of the ending of City of Brass, and I think that put this book on the next level because I can't imagine reading the time in between this book and the first book of City of Brass. It made the book so much more interesting because it would have been so boring if we had to read that middle part, but because we didn't, it was amazing. And then we got character development right away that didn't seem like it was rushed. And speaking on that, it's Ali and Dara who I felt had the most character development. Dara's wasn't my favorite because I do not like the direction his character's going in, which is really sad because Dara was one of my favorite characters in The City of Brass because he was kind of a bad boy with big balls, and he always said what he was thinking, and he wanted to do what was right to him, because there's a gray area there where what is right to certain people in the book are not right to others, and it's just really hard to explain. But he always was setting his foot down and wanting to do what was right, and I thought that he was a pretty interesting character, especially because he was this bad boy who was really sweet to Nari. But you guys know that's my type. Like, how many times have I said that in this video? But it really is my type, so I really liked him. But coming to Kingdom of Copper, I felt like Dara became more like an Ali character, because in The City of Brass, I felt like Ali knew what he was right and he knew what he wanted to do, but I never felt like he was effective about going about it, and I felt like he didn't have the biggest balls, and I felt like I wanted just more from him, honestly. But in The Kingdom of Copper, I feel like Ali changed that around, and Ali became the character whose balls just grew tenfold, honestly. He began doing so many things that he felt was right, and he began speaking up, and he just changed so much that I came to appreciate him a lot as a character. And I felt like Dara kind of regressed in the sense I started to see this part of Dara that I didn't necessarily like, just because he wasn't standing up for what he believed in. There were so many things that he felt was wrong that he stayed silent about, and I couldn't really be here for it. I'm gonna go into ebooks now, and I don't think any of the ebooks I have a lot to say about. So the first ebook that I have to talk about is Meet Cute Club by Jack Harbin. I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars. The only part that I didn't like was that it was so fluffy. I really do like a lot of angst. The next ebook that I read in the month of June was Zini by Rebecca Weatherspoon, and this was a really good book as well. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars as well. It starts off with this girl named Zini, and her aunt has died, and she has to go kind of deal with all the repercussions of that death. And when she gets there, she realizes that she will only get her assets from the will if she marries this boy named Mason. That was the stipulation that her aunt put, and they have to get into this marriage of convenience in order to both get what they want out of the will. And they end up realizing that they have feelings for each other and kind of falling for each other, and it's really cute and sweet. Also very sex positive. If you want to read a book about pegging, this one's for you. So there we are. The next ebook that I read was Office Hours by Katrina Jackson, and this book follows a relationship between 2 professors. I gave it 3 stars, which makes sense, but it starts off the book with them immediately getting into a relationship, and we don't get to get that pining or angst, and we also don't, they're not really friends before this, so they're not really close, so it's not believable, like take a hint because they were friends before that in that book. Here they never even talked, and then suddenly they hook up, and the whole book is about them getting together, and the hookup is so random. It's not like a very fluid relationship development, so that part I didn't like. So I ended up giving it 3 out of 5 stars because I wasn't invested in the relationship. Like, I didn't get enough beforehand. The next ebook that I read was A Girl Like Her by Talia Hibber, and this book follows a girl with autism who is kind of ostracized in her small town because of an incident that we don't know exactly what it is at first, but we figure it out throughout the book. And this new boy moves into town, and he becomes her neighbor. It's not a new boy, they're men and women, like they're older. It's an adult romance, but a new man moves into town, and he becomes her neighbor, and he's trying to figure out why she's so ostracized, and he really likes her, and he finds out that she can't cook, so he keeps bringing meals over to her, and they start to develop a relationship from there. And I thought it was really cute. We love to see a man cleaning for a woman. I keep talking about how men need to stay in their place and clean the house in this video, but I mean, am I necessarily wrong? Am I necessarily wrong? The last ebook that I read was Jock Road by Sarah Nay. If you watched my last wrap up, you know I read the other two books, and this book was literally just like them. And then I also have some physical books that I just want to talk about briefly, and the first one is An Ember in the Ashes. I'm not going to talk too much about this book because I did a whole rereading vlog on it where I talked about a lot of my thoughts. I ended up giving this book 3.5 out of 5 stars, 3.5 or 4. I'm so stuck in between, but I did really like this book. The next book that I read was a nonfiction. I didn't end up rating it because I don't rate nonfiction because I don't read enough of it to rate it. But this book is called White Rage by Carol Anderson. It's just a historical account of racism, and it follows just a whole bunch of incidents of racism throughout history and how that all led up to where we are today. Definitely would recommend it if you're into that sort of thing or if you want to become more informed. The next book that I read was All Boys Aren't Blue by George M. Johnson, and this book was a memoir / manifesto. And I think this book is a book that all people should read, especially honestly anyone, an ally, a person who is in the LGBT community, who is black, who is white, it doesn't matter. I feel like this book is really impactful. And the last book that I have to talk about is With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo. I also talked about this one in my Black Booktuber tag, so don't have much to say other than the fact that Amani is a teen mom and she is a chef, and we follow her life story throughout her last year of high school and her figuring out how to balance her life. Oh, I gave All Boys Aren't Blue 5 out of 5 stars, sorry. And she's figuring out how to balance her life being a teen mom and being a high school student. And I really like this book because we got Amani as a person rather than her just being a mom, because I don't really like to read about teen moms. So I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. I think it's a really good feel-good book. So that was all the books that I read in June and July. Sorry that this wrap up kind of got rushed at the end. My battery is flashing. So leave a star emoji down in the comments if you watched till the end. Like, comment, subscribe, and all those things down below. And I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.